Hello, this is Martin from Gemini Walk and Talk, and today I wanted to talk about the tech industry broadly, but mainly that I got laid off from the tech industry after 14 years of tenure. So I wanted to give you my experience in the tech industry and tell you how it all went and what I think the future is of all that, the tech industry, as well as all these layoffs happening. I have a lot of things to say about this. So first, a little recap about my career. I went to college to learn coding here in the USA. I moved here for college and I wanted to work in the tech industry. I moved to Seattle, which is quite a tech hub, and I did make it happen. And I worked in the tech industry for 14 years. I went at first, previously during the last recession, I was employed by the city of Seattle working on their websites, and that kept me employed through the recession. That was a miracle, actually. The layoffs were brutal back then, and it was scary because I had nothing. I was young and out of college, and had I been laid off, I don't know if I even could have stayed in the USA, because it was, very, very difficult to get a job back then if you lost it. But I survived on a part-time contract with the city of Seattle. And as soon as the economy picked back up, 2011, 2012, I went to work for the public sector and got a proper tech job at a private company. And I started learning aggressively more and more things to code, like new techniques, new languages, new frameworks, etc. And I was quickly able to make my way up. At some point, I realized that there's a lot of advance happening in the realm of web UI, like graphic user interfaces for web apps. And that's when the internet truly became from websites to web apps. And I learned all these frameworks. I was always on the cutting edge. I went to many conferences. I went to many meetups. I even spoke at them. I spoke at conferences and meetups. And I was able to get better and better jobs. I worked for some of the most famous companies. The most famous company I worked was Amazon, but before that I worked for Time magazine, who also owned 100 more magazines. They hired me to work on making them digital. I was using things like React and Node.js, which were very cutting edge at that time. It was right after they had come out, truly. And I was getting those things up and running in production, when in the industry a lot of people were saying, oh, that's not tested, that's not doable. The backend has to be Java, the front end has to be vanilla JavaScript, and you cannot be using these frameworks. Stuff like that. I've had to have endless conversations like that, and we were able to overturn that sentiment, and we were able to make a much better internet with web apps instead of websites. And based on that experience, I was hired by Amazon. And I had the confidence level to go up to a company like Amazon and say, hey, hire me at the senior level, and I will teach around here how to make better graphic user interfaces for your web apps. And Amazon is one of the top 5 companies in the world, and it takes a lot of competence and confidence to be able to go and do that, and I did. So I did get a senior job at Amazon, senior software developer for front-end in particular, and I was working there for 5 years. It was great. Definitely that was the peak of my career. I was going internally, speaking at conferences how to make UI, evangelizing in-house as well. I do believe my team made the best looking part of Amazon.com, which, if you know how it works, Amazon.com consists of very many web applications. It's enormous, and many teams make different parts of them. And I think the one I worked on was the best of all. And so, yeah, I'm very proud of that. Then 2020 happened, and we went to work from home. I did that for 1 more year, and I reached the 5th year of employment at Amazon. And then I quit, and I'll tell you why I quit. Is because Amazon has this concept of a cliff year, which means that you work for them for 5 years, you put in the work, and then on the 5th year your pay drops substantially. And that is because the bulk of your pay comes from stock, which they promised you upon hiring you 5 years ago. And I got one promotion. It was basically going from web developer in there categorization of jobs to a software developer. And I did that, so it pushed my cliff year 1 year. And so it went from the 4th to the 5th. And after the 5th year, I would have made maybe $200,000 less than the previous one. And that was completely insane to me, that you would go to work for a company, you would put in all this work, and in the end they cut your pay massively. And I tried to get more promotions, but I was already at what they call level 6 senior. There was only one level called principal, and only 2% of all seniors ever make it to principal. It's extremely difficult the way they do it, and it depends on having a very large project which cuts across multiple organizations, really big stuff. I had 2 such projects in the works, and both of them were canceled without my control over that at some director level or even VP level. And so when you work on that for a year or two, trying to get a promotion, and then it gets canceled, and then it happens again for another year or two, and then it gets canceled. And that's what your career growth depends on. And then your pay goes down from the cliff year. So to me, that was crazy. And I thought, what is the point? And it also coincided with me having a child that year. So I thought, let's go try something new. And I moved over to work at another company, which is the one that laid me off. I'm not going to name it. I don't have any sort of grudge, but you can easily tell if you think about it, which one it was. So I was focusing on streaming for a while at Amazon. In the end, I make videos here too, so I'm into media. So I did that there. And I was recruited by another company, which was effectively making a competitor for Prime Video and Netflix. And we got that up and running as well. It's a company you all use. And the last 3 years I've been working there. And it was good in a lot of ways, but it coincided with the whole COVID remote work. And we were all at home. Everyone was hired from home in different locations. And to be perfectly honest, I never felt a sense of belonging, never felt a sense of actually being on a team. I hardly had any connection with anybody. You just see them at Zoom calls briefly. It just is not the same. When I worked for both Time and Amazon, we had great teamwork and the feeling of camaraderie. But that went away with the COVID thing. Everything got scattered. I think the synergy went down. And especially being in these senior leadership roles, you are so much expected to influence and lead and build personal connections. And yet you're supposed to be doing that on Zoom and Slack chat, and it's just bogus. It doesn't work. And that's one reason I didn't really hit my stride per se, but it just wasn't the same anymore. And it just made me feel more and more isolated, and like I just waste my time, like I never felt connected to anything that I was building there. But also, my last year at Amazon, I had switched to a type of manager called the technical program manager. And so that's also another reason I switched companies, because Amazon was dragging its feet, my managers there and director, for a whole year after they had promised me the TPM job. I was already doing it for a year, and they still had not actually changed the books. And sometimes the answer I got was, oh, we don't even know how, and stuff like that. And I just felt like that shouldn't take that long. And I went to another company as a TPM, senior TPM again. And I did 3 years as a TPM there. So altogether 4 years of my career, the last 4 out of 14, have been as a TPM, a manager, which is not exactly the software development manager, but pretty close and related. And that was great too. I got a lot of that experience and learned a lot about management, and I'm happy I did it. But ultimately, my company was struggling, and you've seen it. Many companies have done many layoffs in the last few years, since basically the stock market started going down in 2022. And the thing is that streaming too, as an industry, is struggling. It went hugely up in 2020 when everybody was stuck at home watching stuff, and then it came back down to earth, and now the numbers are dismal. Some of the other companies like Disney famously burning tons of money and laying people off. Netflix is notoriously the only company actually making money from streaming. There's Amazon, which will never be out of the market for streaming because it ties the streaming membership to the retail subscription for Prime, and that is guaranteed that Amazon will be around. So competing against Netflix and Amazon is nearly impossible for the rest. Most of them are barely breaking even, if that, and really most of them are losing money, a lot of money. And so I had another baby born in the summer, and things were already teetering. The company had gone through a few rounds of layoffs. I could see basically we weren't doing anything groundbreaking whatsoever, just sort of trying to catch up with Netflix and pushing into new markets and stuff like that. And then I went on paternity leave because we had a new baby born this summer. And during that time, I was very certain I might get laid off. And then I saw the news at one point that the company had lost $12 billion in the last quarter. And I was like, there is absolutely no way they don't start laying people off. And they had said, streaming had actually made some money, but other parts of the company, and it's a big company with lots of businesses, other parts of the company had lost $12 billion, which had to get written off, and our stock went down hard again. So since I was hired by this company, the stock was something like $30, and now it's like $7. So the money that I was promised has now shrank a lot, and that's yet another reason. But I could just see the writing on the wall. It was coming, and it's been coming to many, many companies. If you look at, there's charts with daily and weekly layoffs, and it's constant. So the truth is that the whole industry is struggling, and basically my turn came. I was laid off, and it was not at all like I was unexpected, or I knew this was coming. So I had prepared. I had been saving money this whole time because I knew the industry is not in bad situation, and overall tech is just doing bad unless you're in like AI or something. And that's the other thing. I wanted to shift my career towards AI, but my company had none of that because there's not much AI in streaming. And streaming is basically already standardized. You just do the same thing. Whatever Netflix is doing, do the same. Make a carousel, so-called, basically a side scroll on the TV, and so on. And then all the algorithms, now it's all just literally auto-suggest, suggesting you what to watch. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing the same thing in that industry. So, all the vigor that I had when I was learning how to make the best UIs and make the best frameworks and so on, it was gone. Basically in Netflix or whatever, in streaming, you just do the same thing that Netflix does. And so there was no excitement anymore, no sense of belonging either. The industry was sagging, and you could even say dying. And there was no AI or no experimental technology or no just anything exciting to work on either. But I had little kids, so I was choosing security for a while. And after a while, they just cut and laid me off. And that's that. So now what? I look back and I am very happy that I had this career so far. I have now a chance actually to reboot a bit because they do give you severance packages and things like that in most of these tech companies, unless they're like a small startup or something. And I still have pay. And I'm here by the lake, you see, with my baby, walking him around. He's sleeping. And we also have a family business, so I can at least have something going, I'm not completely out either of pay or things to do. And it is actually a good time for me to have a break because I had a baby, and we have a 3-year-old as well. So we don't have anyone helping us in town with children, no family nearby. The closest ones are 6 hours away by plane. So this actually helps in a lot of ways, but after a break I'll have to now begin figuring out what to do. The question though is what is happening with our whole industry, because all I've seen for the last few years is layoffs, constant layoffs. Sorry, plane going by, water plane. They land on the lake here. And so constant layoffs are happening, And on top of that, they're now demanding people to go back in the office more and more. And I don't know if I want that life again. So when I did this whole career, 14 years, I did the city and then I was in corporate. And it's a lifestyle in a way, because you're doing the same thing, the rut, the 9 to 5, go in the office, you have your meetings, you have computer time, desk time, oh my God. And this is the number one reason I actually am not excited to go back to this industry, because it's you and the computer for the most part, and working remotely actually made that worse, to be honest. But the fact that you had to go to the office all along was bad as well. I actually like the hybrid model where you go to the office sometimes, and that's not bad at all. And I'll probably eventually look for something like that again. But the fact is, I feel happier, calmer, healthier when I can work on my own terms. And after, I have not taken a break for 14 years, honestly. It's been 9 to 5 for 14 years. And that's a long time and a big part of your life. And now, having had children, I want to be with them. It was of great benefit to me that we went to work from home for the last 4 years, because I was able to be with my son when he was 0 to 3.5 almost. And most fathers don't get that chance. Most fathers are gone. If you look back to your own father, usually, or you hear other people, your dad wakes up, prepares for work, may or may not drop you off at school, and then returns from work after like 6 o'clock or something. And you have then 2 hours until the children go home or go to bed. And so in that 2 hours, you also have to eat or maybe make dinner, whatever else. And so you're talking an hour or something like that to have fun with your child on 5 days of the week. And that's really troubling for me. The other thing is, you are not healthy, you're not active during the day with a 9 to 5. If you work on your own terms, you're able to break up your day within intervals that allow, like go for a walk, go to the gym, go to the sauna, go swimming, go to the beach, and then work again. If you want to work at 9 p.m., you work then. If you want to wake up and work at 5 a.m., you work then. And that's what I've been doing with some other projects just to keep me going since I was laid off. And I'm also with the child, the new baby, something like 4 or 5 hours a day. He's still breastfeeding for a large part of the day, so he's with the mother something like 20 hours a day. But I help as much as I can, and I helped a lot with the first baby. So this was really kind of a gift, and it opened my eyes, and it also is like I tasted freedom. And now that everything for the last 14 years that I had in my tech career feels like a past life in a way. And I'm like, I look back at it, and believe me, I am grateful and I'm happy I did it, and I always wanted to. And it was a great choice, and it was my path to go work for corporate, make a lot, be able to secure a house in this city, and make sure my family is well off to a degree. And now my child can go to preschool, and I don't have to sweat these things even when I get laid off. I'm not in any way troubled right now, but I do have to eventually work again. And so I think of what I want out of the next part of my life. And so here I am, I have 2 children, I've spent 14 hours doing the office thing in the corporations. I don't exactly want to return, but the way I feel is that if I have to, after this break is over, I will go back for the sake of my family, truly. If it was just me, single, I would have just retired right now. I would simply invest all this money as I already have, and I wouldn't have to work for the rest of my life. But it's not enough for a family of 4. And I would easily go spend time in cheaper places. I wouldn't have to worry about education, about the school year, how children have to be here present. I wouldn't have to be paying Seattle rents and mortgages. I would just be renting out all the properties, investing the money, collecting dividends, being thrifty, and I could stretch it for the rest of my life. But because I'd rather have a family, by far, like this is not even questionable to me, I have chosen to have a family, and therefore, if it is so that I have to return to work for the sake of my family, I will do that. But I have to now look at the landscape of the software industry and try to make the best choice for myself. First of all, definitely not going back to streaming because, like I said, it's dying. And I would rather go to AI, which means I need to do a certain amount of retraining myself. Then the question becomes, which company? Is it a remote-based company fully? Is it a hybrid? Or is it in office, in person? And that becomes a hard choice. I have to see. But it will really come down to actually who is hiring, because the hiring, I just see layoffs. I've talked to a few people that are still working in the big companies here, like Amazon, Meta, Google, etc., Microsoft. They are hiring, but it's not that dramatic and just little by little. So if you have a good resume, a good career and contacts, you can probably get back in and it's all right. And that's really where I find myself. So I believe I could do that. But do I really want to go back to these giant companies with their demands and so on? And let's be perfectly honest, I have lost so much respect for the tech industry in the last 4 years because of just either policies or statements they have made and things like that, which honestly don't sit well for me. And they continue changing their mind and apologizing about how they do things. And you're like, okay, but I need to, at least on some level, align with what I do. I've always had that need. I'm a creative type, actually. I feel a great need for creative expression and aligning with what I do all day long. And I believe that you need that, otherwise you're kind of just slowly dying inside. So while I was feeling like I'm on the cutting edge of technology and that's what I was passionate about, I felt great about that, and I was working daily hard on that, and my career was at a peak. But I need to find that alignment, and I actually do care quite a bit for AI, especially when it comes to the intersection of AI and creativity, which actually there's a lot of that going on. So yeah, if I can find such a job, I'll go work on that. But I'm worried because the economy, if you look at the tech industry, net numbers, how many were employed, what the stocks were worth, and the revenues and so on, I fully believe the tech industry is actually in recession. And because of that, I think that we have trouble some time to come, and I don't see this actually ending. I believe, to be perfectly honest, the golden days are over. The golden age is behind us when it comes to the tech industry. That is simply because there isn't as much capital around. Back in 2020, 2021, we had record amounts of just capital sloshing around, basically pouring out of the central banks and other ways, government spending, and everyone was stuck at home just trying to figure out what to do with their money in a way. And it was just going into meme stocks and crypto, whatever it was called, cryptocurrency and stuff like that. NFTs, right? That was the biggest nonsense I've ever heard of. So there was so much capital, and all of a sudden it stopped because the central banks saw that inflation is going out of control, and we're still paying the price, something like 50% more on cost of living. And now there's not that capital pouring out, and everyone is tightening. So all the business models now are harder, everything's harder, hiring is harder, pay is lower and stuff like that. So I actually think we're very close to a recession. I think the only reason the overall economy has avoided a recession is because of deficit government spending by the trillions, to be perfectly honest with you. So if that government spending stops, the whole economy goes into recession, and then it will be millions and millions of people laid off and extremely hard to get a job. There will be thousands of applicants for every good job out there. And that's a serious issue. So, there's stormy seas ahead, the way I see things. But, I'm not fully worried because I have like multiple tiers of fallback plans. Ultimately, yeah, there's places to go that life is much cheaper, investments to be made, and things that can work out. Even if you are not able to get back into the high pumping economy that we had back then. So that's in a way kind of a recap. So I think now about what I want out of my next decade or 2 or 3 in life. What do I really want? Because I did my due diligence in a way. I went and I worked for companies doing what they want. What do I want? Well, we actually have thought about this for a long time with my wife, and she did this 12 years ago. She quit her job from the corporations and started a business. And I gave her a lot more freedom, but it also made her work extremely hard. At first just to stay in business and then to grow. And truly, for us to be financially secure, I have had to work in corporate while she does all that. By now, her business is doing decently well, and there's growth there, and it's looking good. So we also have started businesses together during that time, in tourism and in media and so on, and those businesses still exist. So if I have my choice, I would simply transition to working at our businesses, because in the end, that allows me to have my life, the life I want. I want to have my choices about how to live, and health and family time are very important to me, and so is creativity and so on, and feeling aligned with what I'm working on. And that's not something you always get at the corporation. So, I feel like in life, if we don't come from some kind of inheritance or, whatever well-off position, you have to put in some work to get yourself ahead. But you also hopefully have the chance to live on your own terms. And I like to believe at least that I can try that. And this layoff is in a way a chance. It's actually a blessing in disguise, because I can now reboot and then look around and think of what is next and try out a few things, see if they work. And if so, then maybe between our businesses and investments and so on, we have enough to get by. And if so, I'm better off growing those things instead of returning to corporate. And if not, okay, I'll try it out and I'll go back. That's my thinking right now, and my thinking may change, but in a nutshell, that is how I feel. And I'm laying out how I feel about it because it's fresh. It's good to have these little checkpoints, and if you want to follow the journey of where it will take me, follow along, subscribe, and see. But I don't know, the biggest thing is that you can now, if you're laid off, you hopefully are in a place where you can stop and think about what you really want to do. And I know what I want to do. I've been actually on the side working towards that for at least 10 years, and it gives me this chance. So if I can now get a couple at least of new income streams going, I probably close the gap with our living expenses, and then from then on the businesses grow and we are able to live the way we want to live. And that's not a bad place to find yourself. People have these midlife crises and so on. Oh my God, I'm married with kids. I may have gotten laid off, or I hate my job. I don't feel such a thing. I feel really, really good about where I am. So to me, the whole idea of a midlife crisis is rather a puzzle. I don't necessarily think it has to exist. It just basically if you're failing perhaps, but I now have the chance to actually live the way I want to live. And that's really the main thing here. And if not, sure, I'll look around, I'll get another job. And I can also explain to you further at another video why I think the tech industry is going to struggle a lot in comparison to where it was for the last 10 years at least. It's not looking too good in my opinion, so check back for another video on that topic. Here's something else I wanted to mention, and that is what I've noticed working in these companies for a long time. And I see the people who have spent a long time there, they're now over 40, over 50, they generally are into kind of separated in two halves. There are people who genuinely love it and kind of thrive on that kind of environment, the corporate thing, the rat race, the corporate culture, the donuts in the office, the meetings, the office jokes. It's so freaking lame, but they love it, and that's basically their identity, and they like being the busy bee going around the office, huffing and puffing and thinking they're accomplishing a lot. In the end of the day, you kind of are a cog in the system, however. And one of my managers used to say, you know, if you have like a major life issue, prioritize that over work, because we're making websites here, we're not curing cancer. And so all the huffing and puffing, what is it for? You know, Elon Musk wants to take humanity to Mars, and that's quite the goal, but the vast majority of us are actually doing something that doesn't matter one bit. And after a while, that really gets to you. You're like, why am I doing this? Am I really, you know, I have one life to live. Is this what I want out of it? Sitting here at this desk. And I think the sitting is actually the worst enemy, and the screen time. But what you see is these people, they're usually the engineering type, so-called cerebral. You know, they think very hard about things, and they're paid a lot of money to think hard about things. And they have this demeanor where they're posed the question and they think very hard, and just kind of wrinkles appear on their forehead, and they're slowly formulating an answer. They're breathing kind of heavily. Most of them are overweight and very, in a way, crusty. You know, that's a term I can use to describe the aging people in the software industry and other types of engineering too. From this much sitting, from having to deal with all the same issues over and over again, they just develop this personality and sort of a malaise. Like, it's they have illnesses, honestly. Most of them are kind of limping, going hard, you know, just getting through space is hard for them. And then they get asked a question, there's like a 5 to 10 second break until they formulate an answer, which they have to think about very deeply, because that's what they're getting paid to do, and their whole persona is based on that now. And in the end, you don't quite see the vigor, the vitality in them anymore. You don't feel like they're enjoying life. And that's really the rest of the people in corporate who are not the enjoyers. Those who enjoy it, all to them, but I believe they're kind of twisted individuals, to be perfectly honest with you. And those who are just putting up a front, you can see how they're slowly dying inside and on the outside too. Their bodies really start to show it when middle age comes. They're not getting enough exercise, they're not walking, they're not getting up enough. You know, if you think about their life, it consists of something like 95% sitting, and the rest they're dragging their feet to the office coffee machine, which makes cancer coffee from plastic tubes and plastic stuff. It heats water in plastic, and it's just a very troubling existence to me. So me now having children, I very much am concerned about health. I want to live long in good health, to be with my children, and I don't want to fail my health to the point where I just can't be on par with my young children so they can have a good life and to have fun. I want to live long enough to see them live out their years. I want to see them get married, have their own children. I want to see my children have their own careers, make their own place in the world, and establish themselves. I want to see what their passions they have, how they want to live. And I want to set them up for all that. I cannot do that if my health and vigor and spirit are failing because I'm doing something all day long that does not align with me. I have seen it on and on with these people, and it's a sad story, to be perfectly honest with you. And in the same time, this is the world we live in here. You see here, it's a beautiful day, it's a beautiful world, and I'm here on a work day, taking this path, taking this walk, being able to express myself. These are things that actually matter to me on a much deeper level than at this point a paycheck. So my goal now is actually to understand how I can escape that trap where I become the middle-aged guy who is dying inside doing his desk job because he has to pay bills. Some of them actually believe they like the jobs, but they know they're getting worn out by them. And here's what you could be doing instead. You know, you can wake up, cook a nice breakfast for your child, take them to school, and then you can take a long walk by the beach, reflect, be healthy, and work on a business for several hours. Then, you know, spend some time with your children, put them to bed, and then work on the business again. That's a day which, to me, sits much better than the 9 to 5 thing, which also some people call the 4HL, the 4-hour life, which means you get 4 hours in each day at best. Most people get more like 2, because you also have to feed yourself and shower and so on. So if you have that typical type of employment, you are living the 4HL. 5 days a week, you have a couple hours, up to 4 perhaps, to do something that isn't work related or chores. And then you have the weekend. So they all live for the weekend practically, the so-called weekend warriors. But then I also noticed that so many people their chores pile up at the weekend, and they're just spending their weekends cutting grass and doing laundry and so on, so they can be ready for the next week, in which they're spinning their wheels the entire time. And at that point, what is it all for? Are you really living the real world? Because especially the software industry, it's all a big abstraction. It's all fake. Code, is it real? No, it's like in cyberspace. Sure, it helps our lives. We live better thanks to software. But you staring at a screen for 12 hours a day, are you living in the real world? Are you connected to what makes you human? Or are you separating yourself? Are you being separated and therefore suffering from that? And to me, I need a certain amount of outdoor time in a day. I need a certain amount of family time. And I need a certain amount of creative time and, in a way, reflective time. I still like to read and grow, teach myself things. And after a while working at these software companies, it's all the same. It's like, how many services can you talk about? How many, it's a microservice architecture, it's authentication, is it secure? Did you pass security review? Is your, stress test going well? Can it be hacked? The bots are coming. And is your UI working? How many edge case bugs do you have to fix today? Every time is the same conversation. Like, is anybody excited by that after 10, 20 years? And this is, by the way, why I switched to management, so I am closer to the business after a while, so that the conversations are a little different, but they're still pretty damn close. And it just, who truly is excited about that after a while? It's honestly not me. And it's like, oh, wow, we can serve 5 billion requests per second. Who cares? I really don't care. Like, is it a sunny day? Is it beautiful? Are the birds flying? Are the flowers blooming? Are the bees buzzing? Can I hear children laughing? Those are things that actually I care for at the moment. Obviously, nobody's going to pay me for them, so I have to think of ways to make a living as well. But the truth is that you need the balance. If you don't have the balance, you're going to have one side of it go down. And you don't want that to be your health, because at that point you will start suffering. And the truth is that if your health goes, so does everything. You cannot be a good worker, a smart engineer, or a good parent if your health fails. And I see so many people's health failing. Now we have all the statistics showing earlier and earlier cancer rates for millennials, obesity is way high, the medicating is terrible, like everyone's on some kind of antidepressant drug or ADD drug or whatever other drug, they can't get an erection, and all this stuff, man, like everyone's health is failing and they are not really asking themselves the right questions. And so to me, that's what I should be prioritizing at this part of life. I don't want to be those people who are just disease-ridden and huffing and puffing just because they have to kick the can another day. And they're dreaming, they're living for the weekend until they retire, hopefully at 65, and then they live for what? Their life is spent, they're diseased, they're sick. and they can't enjoy life as much as they should have. And their kids are already grown and gone. And so what was it all for? Was this the optimal life to live? And that's the thing, you have one shot at life to make it a good life. You want that life to be the optimal life you can live. And is 9 to 5 optimal? I don't think there's a single person on earth that thinks 9 to 5 is optimal. Everyone does it because they have to. And you know, this whole hybrid work model is a ray of light in a way, because we saw the alternative and it's really hard to go back. Now, if I go back and they tell me sit here every day, 8:30 to 4:30, I'll be like, oh my God, I don't know. Can I actually do this? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but then it becomes a month, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. How about 25 more years of that? Can I actually do this? I don't think so. So I need an exit plan. That's where my thoughts are, having been laid off, honestly. And I actually am glad that I get this chance to reboot and to gather my thoughts and to try to think of a way forward that doesn't involve making such compromises. I don't want to compromise my health, my family, any of that, my freedom, my integrity. I actually want a chance, I want to give a shot of living the life that I want to live. Is it too much to ask for after 14 years in the industry? I think it's not. I think everyone should get a chance at least to try. See you.